All right. Hey, welcome to Life After the X. And I am your host, Ty Washington, the X kind of expert. And here we are here to level out the playing grounds because it's all about your perspective. And we're so happy to have you back here today with us for another show. We got a lot of changes going on, and we're so excited about these great changes. I'm ever growing and learning with things that I'm going to come on the show and share with you about these experiences that's going to be my life after the X topics. And so this week we're going to be talking about prison reform and life after being home from being incarcerated on a deeper level, which is going to intro my next guest, which will be next week. So with that, I'm going to just share that, today you see we're on a different day. Today is Thursday. So for the next few months, I'm going to be here on Thursday, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Standard Time. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram so that you won't get lost. We're trying to be able to see the great information we have on the shows every week because you can find us on those different platforms. But you can also locate me via my website, lifeafterdx.com, as well as all of my social handles at Life After DX. And so, again, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me again. This week, we're going to be talking about prison reform and life after being incarcerated, and some of the challenges that, typically people face, and some of the things that I have faced, but has not been as challenges with others. And so, of course, every week we're going to share with you a tea that I'm sipping on as I sip and I share a tip of the week. And so thank you so much for being here with us. So yes, um, today I just have a different whole feel for life after being incarcerated. I experienced going through the process of someone getting housing. Just a simple note of wanting to get housing was a challenge for someone who was formerly incarcerated, came home, who has rebuilt their life, who has helped to contribute toward lowering the recidivism rate, because when you come home and you become a productive citizen in society, that means you're not going back to the prison, and so you're keeping the numbers down low, and that means it's giving more people a surety that their community is being rebuilt in a very positive and productive way because of your contribution to that neighborhood. And so I experienced this individual trying to apply for housing, different apartment complexes. And I did not realize during this time that apartment applications were so expensive. Did y'all know that? If you did, please let me know about that, more about it in other areas in other states, or other cities other than the Dallas Fort Worth area. I mean, when I was applying for apartments back in my day, apartment applications may have been about $25, $30. I don't think nothing ever went past maybe $50, but the application fee was $130. I could not believe it. I'm like, $130. I can pay for a hotel room for a couple of days for $130. It's the fact that I'm putting a piece of paper in that could possibly be denied based on criteria that they're looking for their potential tenants as a resident on their property. And so with that being said, it made me review and look at some of the things of what prison reform needs to be addressing. And so I pray that there are some politicians, because we're getting ready to be in the election season, that there are some city commissioners and councilmen, or anyone who advocates for the rights and for voting rights. During this time, we need to change a lot of things because there's a lot of loops and holes that are in the system that is not very beneficial for those who are returning back to society, who want to be very productive citizens, who have did their time and want to just simply find housing. They've got a good job that's paying them money. They've gotten a car. They probably sometimes have finished out on parole. They've satisfied all the things that they needed to do to what the state required. And all they want to do is find somewhere to live other than a transitional house, a shelter, someone else's house, be it a family member or a friend, or just sleeping in their vehicle. And so today I want to just kind of address some of the things that I did observe during this process of someone simply trying to get housing. And so I had a person that I mentor, and she is classified, and myself as well. So I'm classified. We have what they would call uh, formerly incarcerated felons. And so they classify us in two different groups. You have the formerly incarcerated ex-felons, and then you have the formerly incarcerated ex-felons, violent ex-offenders. And so when you are a violent ex-offender, there may be resources available under the prison reform initiative or programs and projects, but they don't cater to everyone. So that means it's classified under a case by case, which to me, case by case, it has its jurisdiction. I clearly understand the reasoning for some of it, because surely I don't want a probably active sex offender living around me if he's still pedophiling and not made a true change into society, regenerating back in too. However, there are ways that we need to be able to streamline and go a little bit deeper than just a check mark or a line filled out on the application, whether it be in paper, in person, or online, because the paper can only say so much about an individual. And so in this case, because we are both classified as violent ex-offenders, there's a lot of resources that doesn't apply to us as formerly incarcerated ex-offenders. And so, with doing this application process, I made some discoveries on the applications that were quite alarming to me. There was one line on one that mentioned that, they can base it on 0 to 99 on the background. Now, that means if I'm home for less than a week, I may qualify, even though I have a background, to get housing. That's probably with no job, no credit, because when you're coming home, clearly you probably don't have a job. You probably don't have good credit, depending on how long you've been gone. You probably don't have as many strong references other than your family. So, with applying for an application, how does that 0 days qualify for you as a formerly incarcerated individual? I just got questions. So, but we'll find out about that, and I will come back and share more about it as I'm doing my investigative stage on prison reform and resources available for those for life after their incarceration. And so it says 0 to 99. So I went by that particular location. I was speaking to a staff member. I don't think it was management, because they wasn't there. It wasn't even the person I spoke to via phone, because typically when I'm trying to streamline where to send people for resources of such like housing, because I know everything is case by case, I do ask these basic questions of, are you still accepting those who may have a background of being incarcerated? And what criteria are you looking for? Because typically people do not have an extra $75 to $150 to just give away. If you're working at minimum wage on your job 40 hours a week, you're barely able to afford basic housing. So to just give away $130 on an application that you're going to deny needs to be eradicated, like stopped immediately, because that will cause anyone of a mental challenge to go postal. Or they still going postal when the pandemic. So I'm not sure how they're classifying things these days, but I can kind of see the anguish that could happen upon someone who loses hope when they go out and in hopes of thinking that this location is going to allow them an opportunity to start their life over with new housing for them. And so when I asked the representative at the complex, what did that mean on the paperwork by 0 to 99, meaning we can go up to 99 years of your background. So typically, I'm just going to use a reference of like with jobs. Most jobs don't go more than 7 to 10 years of background when they're doing a background check on you for your credentials, even for employment. So I'm thinking with housing, and you're going to go from 0 with no clarity of what that looks like to 99, who literally outlives 99 years of a background coming home after being incarcerated? Were they a baby when they went in? I just had a question. So she couldn't really justify that. She couldn't give me a clear answer. She was just like, this is just what the standard paperwork says of credentials, of being able to qualify, credit worthiness, of being able to live on our property. Okay, great. So then I went to like some of the next ones that listed charges that formerly incarcerated people could not qualify for a clearance to live on their property. It listed everything that I thought anyone could criminally cause in their life. I'm thinking to myself, do you really allow anyone who has a background to live on your property? Just a question. And so that's some things that I know during this political season. of voters, because mind you, and I will have a show talking about voting and voting rights, and I will try to get some people on that will have a stronger voice of information or of reason about what that looks like when it comes to losing your rights as a voter in certain states, because I'm in Texas and we do not have the right to vote when we are freshly released from being in prison or as while we're on parole. Now you're able to retain your voting rights after you parole, but that's another whole conversation and dialogue that I will spill some tea on in a different show, because there is a life after being incarcerated that's a little more challenging than what most people think. When you get a job and now you're paying taxes and you don't feel like a full-fledged tax validated payer when you pay taxes, then you don't even have a voice to vote. You're not even considered a full voter right citizen because you don't have that part, but they still require you to pay taxes from your income and things that you do as a citizen in that state, city, or county, even though you don't have a voice to make any changes on the changes for the lives of those that affect your community as being formerly incarcerated. So a lot of things concerning prison reform that's quite challenging. So back to the individual. So we deal with that complex. That was a no for us. And so we went to a different complex in an even lower grade community. So my next thing was, is it the only option that people who are really trying to start their life over, their life after the X of being incarcerated, and working with the resources that prison reform say they're afforded those who are starting their life over and regenerating back into society, that they can only pretty much live in low graded communities? They've now decided to make new choices in their life concerning people, places, and things. They may have been living in a sober and sobriety life for a period of time with good support around them, but now they have to go live in a potentially drug infested in community that say that they're rebuilding their community, but they can't even almost qualify to live in a housing as well. I just had a question. Where can those who are really starting over with their life live? Where do we have an opportunity to get our great start? What is prison reform doing for us? What are those resources doing for those who do not have family support, who does not come home to a great support team of resources outside of the parole officer who gives limited information about resources, as well as the resource person that works in the office? Because fortunately, I have the opportunity to work within a parole office, and the officers are very limited on what they can share and provide. They want to be at their best, giving their parolees the most help that they can get to regenerate back to society, but they're kind of limited. So then we do have a resource person that works in the office, and then they get what people give them. But again, I just ciphered through a list that was given to us that says that they're giving hope of opportunities of housing to those who are wanting to step out on their own to become new homeowners and renters within their communities, and they're still being rejected because they're not credit worthiness, because of their background, and not just because of the nature of their crime per se, just because they're formerly incarcerated and because they've been to prison altogether. I just have a question for those who happen to be people who own properties, people who happen to have properties that they're renting out to people, homes, structures, single family homes. How are you deciding what really is a good fit for a tenant? Are you looking in deeper? Which I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to take a small break so we can hear from one of our amazing sponsors during the show. And I'm going to take a sip of my tea because my throat is a little bit dry. But I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper about some of the responses I got from some of the property owners who are wanting to rebuild and keep their community being safe and great for the current and new moving in tenants. But what does that look like for those who are living their life after the X, after their experience of coming home back into their life of being formerly incarcerated? So thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll be back shortly. And we're here every Thursday for the next few months. Change of address. We're here on Thursdays instead of Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Standard Time. if you're having a problem trying to locate us, you can definitely find us via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at AAU Media, as well as you can find me, Ty Washington, on lifeafterthex.com and all social media handles. So we'll be back shortly. Thank you so much.
Throw and Tuck. It's handmade by myself, and you only can get it here, and it's patent, and it's only here at Real Coco Design. It's like a regular pillow, or you can take the blanket out like so, fluff up the pillow, open up your blanket, wrap it around yourself, and then you can lay on your sofa and relax with your pillow throw and tuck. When you're done with it, just flip it over. When you don't want the blanket anymore, you just fold it over twice. Fold it over twice again. Fold it over. And tuck it in the back. And there you go. You're back to the pillow throw and tuck. The Coco Design.
I might just start light me a candle on set while I'm having my sip of tea, just kind of welcoming the warm environment of being here on Life After the X. So, hey, everybody, welcome back to Life After the X. I am Ty Washington, the X-Con expert, and we are here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can follow us on all social media handles. That will be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AAU Media, as well as with Life After the X. Thank you so much, Ms. Rococo Designs, for that sponsorship doing this show. I tell you, I just noticed she had them little cute fluffy boots on, honey. She gonna have me out here shopping for me some fur to put on the side of some of my boots, along with that fluffy pillow that I want to have in my archive of pillows, because I just love pillows. They're just the comfiest things to have laying around in my life environment. But anyway, so we're here this week talking about prison reform and resources that are available or so per se afforded those who are starting their life over after their ex of experiencing being incarcerated and coming back, regenerating back to society, in hopes of lowering the recidivism rate. Because at the end of the day, when someone is not able to retain a job, to retain good housing and certain basic elements and things, they tend to warp back into that mentality that causes them to go back to committing the crimes that they committed prior to, which makes them go back to being in prison, which does not lower the rate of recidivism. So what just simply looking at applying for housing and being rejected multiples of times can be very discouraging for the average person, and so I was approached about a situation because myself, I have some knowledge about application processes and not being accepted based on credit, not enough credit, being a first timer, credit score not being big because you've never financed or lived anywhere on your own per se, alongside just starting a job and not having enough job credentials in place that will cause you to not qualify for housing when you're starting out on your own. But then layer that alongside of having a criminal background, alongside of adding on top of that, not just being a formerly incarcerated ex-felon, but being a violent ex-offender. What does it look like for us in the community who really want to make a great start as becoming a renter in the community? Now I share this, and I'm going to give some my tip of the week will be what I'm going to share about what that looks like is that, when you're having these challenges of becoming a renter and live in certain places, hey, create a new lane and become a homeowner. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that part of part of the show as well. But I am here also for questions and comments and suggestions. Again, as I will be bringing a guest on to talk about that personal journey and what that looks like, because again, I do know what it's like to be rejected when applying for housing with the apartment complex, but I don't know what that looks like as for being a formerly incarcerated individual. Fortunately, I was able to come home to my family and restart my life on that level. But even during that time, there were challenges of things that I was approached with. I was promised a lot of resources that would be available for those who were returning back into their particular community, especially in the Dallas County area. But once returning back and getting connected with the people and resources, there were a lot of them that I didn't qualify for because I was a violent ex-offender, which was very discouraging because, I had a very isolated incident. And it's not like I'm out here as a serial killer or a formal serial killer. And I know that most people don't know me. So I'm just going to get deep in this thing and spill the tea. I know a lot of times that when people are looking to do a background, they're really just doing their due diligence to keep their community safe. But are you really doing your due diligence? Because with this particular individual, I had to come in and be as a advocating mediator mentor for them. So they had the timidness of possibly losing their money because they've already lost money with previous places applying that, like I said again, was more than $75 per application. That's a lot of money. With that much money, you can go almost buy a RV and just have your own housing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm just putting it out there. And so, in case there's an RV sponsor that want to come over here and just help someone have a new home in an RV, look me up at Life After the X, U Media, okay? And so, but I talked to the property manager, which again, she don't make the full decisions by herself, and I fully understand that with our dialogue and conversation on the subject matter, and that she would have to, consult with the property owner, who at the time is trying to redo their complex and community for better safety and housing for their current and future tenants. And I totally get that, because I want to be in a safe community as well, so I don't have to keep calling the popos to the house. And so, nevertheless, in the midst of my conversation, I asked her a few questions like, what are you looking for when you are considering denying? I don't care about approving, because it's easy for some people to say, okay, I'm going to approve you, and there's no answer to why they approved you. They just approved you. But typically, people don't get those answers of why they was being denied. And so I want to know, what would make someone not qualify to live in your property? And so, of course, that was probably new for her. She'd never experienced that before. And that's great. I like to bring those type of situations to people, because guess what? We need to open that kind of dialogue if we're going to talk about helping those who are trying to regenerate back to society and be a productive citizen in a community or any community. What does that look like when it comes to prison reform? What are you saying when you're here to give us a second chance? I'm not really down for the second chance people. I need somebody who's willing to give many chances, because I serve a God that's the master creator of multiple chances. So I want to be on that team of community of people who want to work with formerly incarcerated, who gives multiples of chances. I mean, you might have missed your rent during the pandemic and got evicted, and will you have a chance because you have a background criminally as well as financially? Or are you going to be willing to help me with another chance, not a second chance, because I lost that second chance doing that second chance? And so with that dialogue with her, she was like, well, we're trying to make sure that we don't have like drug dealers coming in. So I say, well, so what does that look like for someone who had a drug charge? Well, they have to at least have been out for maybe 10 to 15, maybe 20 years with their charge being that old. Okay. And I truly fully get it. Like I explained to her, I know you don't want no Nino Browns moving in, taking over and creating a new whole layout in your property. And I totally get that, because I would want my children to feel safe, or anyone visiting my home, if I was there, and not worrying about if Nino Brown had took over half the complex and trying to force someone to be under the jurisdiction of that type of lifestyle. And so, but alongside, do you look beyond the application of asking questions, because the application can only say so much. And this is the thing, I'm gonna just say about this particular complex, the application had about 5 questions on it. I've seen applications that's like 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 pages. This application had like 3 questions on one sheet, probably. It didn't even ask that much information. So how did you just went on the social that was given, you looked at the background, and you probably was going to deny the individual had I probably not gave you a call for you and your property owner to have a different conversation based on the dialogue that we communicated. And so I asked you, I said, well, that doesn't really address us. I just put that out there because you mentioned that one first, but we are considered violent offenders. And I know there's a lot of programs and resources that are available for formerly incarcerated ex-offenders, but there's not a lot of them that qualify case by case based on their individual charge and timeline as violent ex-offenders. I say, so with something like that, what would you be looking for to decide if you're going to deny it? I said, because here's the deal. The individual that just applied the other day, they gave you her last $100 and something toward an application, a piece of paper that probably cost 5 cents to print and the time to fill it out. I know about backgrounds and the cost of using a system to run them, because I actually am a director of an organization that we do backgrounds, and it's not cheap to run a background on an individual. So I fully understand that as well. So I mentioned that to her. I say, but outside of that, when you look at the background, what else are you considering inside of that? And so she said that, well, I looked at her paperwork and it said that, she had a charge that was against a child. I say, well, let me just tell you this. The individual didn't even have anything to do with her charge. I say, actually, it was at her home. And because it was her home, she was pulled in as an accessory because it was her home. I said, so she actually served time for a charge that she didn't actually even commit. I say, but if you don't ask that question, looking at a piece of paper that you paid your money for, that you charge us pretty much to run a background on to do, it just limits you on possibly removing a tenant that could possibly be a great asset to your future community that you're trying to rebuild. I said, let me just tell you about the person. I said, she's been home for several years. She's gone back to school, gotten a degree. She has a great job as a supervisor over a department in a place in Highland Park. I say she also has finished out on parole and satisfied in a very positive capacity. I say, and all she needs is somewhere to live. But she can't even afford to do that because she's spending all her money on application fees being denied because no one wants to tell her why she can't live on their property. I say, so I want to just streamline and find out before we even get to that point, is she going to be denied or not? And if so, what is we need to do to take your name off the list? Or how can I let people know that if they have this type of charge, don't come to your complex for some things? Because that's really saddening to think that it could cause someone that may be challenged with a mental health issue. So we're not even going to talk about mental health, because that will be a show that we're going to spill the tea on, that gets real deep about people going around here killing people, killing themselves and their family because of their mental health, and because someone denied them when they thought they had hope, that promised them an opportunity of a second chance to have housing somewhere, because it could just be just that simple. And so it provoked me to just want to have this dialogue in a more deeper level. So, and I'm fortunate to be able to have this opportunity on our wonderful platform with All About Us Media, and I'm thankful to the founder of our organization that allowed me to come on and be as candid as I can be about these topics that seem to be very touchy at times. And so, but nevertheless, I said, well, she's a violent ex-offender, and that's her charge, and she's not even guilty of it. I say, but you're about to possibly miss a possibly good paying tenant because you don't even ask any questions other than your 5-question application and $100 fee. I say, so she says, so she mentions to me, well, it said that she pled guilty. I said, well, let me just give you a quick update on about the justice system. And this is now and probably 30 years back. Now, back when her charge possibly happened, when it was hard to fight charges, especially for women in Texas, because they were so used to so much of protecting men, they didn't even think about trying to help women who could really be innocent in a lot of situations. You don't know if her counsel told her to make that type of decision to plead guilty. I say, but she was not guilty of that particular charge because she was just a part of it by association. I say, but you could possibly try to fight a charge and get more time than if you would have just pled guilty for something you didn't do. And so she was like, she never thought about that. I said, exactly. That's why we're having this conversation. I said, because the application can't tell you that, and nor can a background either. That can possibly help you lose a great future tenant since you're rebuilding your community to have good paying tenants with good future moving backgrounds here. Let's have that dialogue. And so she started asking me more questions. Well, why did she plead guilty? Again, I said, well, you know what? I don't want to go in any deeper in this here. How about we make a phone call and put her on a three-way, and you can ask her those questions, because I think that's due diligence that you would want to ask those questions as you as the property manager, as well as responding back to the owner of the property, since you're interviewing for this tenant who could possibly be a great asset to your community that you're rebuilding. So you say that's supposedly giving opportunities for those who are formerly incarcerated, giving them a second chance. Okay, we're not even going to talk about that again, but that'll be another one that we'll spill the tea on about second chances. But nevertheless, we made the call and put her on the line, and she asked her a few other questions that was able to satisfy what she needed to know to go back to the owner based on what they pulled from the background. And so from that communication, we moved into her saying that she's going to follow back with us in about a day or so. And so with that being said, that was maybe 2 days later. I had spoken with the person that's the subject of this conversation, and she hadn't heard back from them at this point, but she was looking to hear from them that following day, and she did eventually hear back from them. Oh Lord, I got to drink a sip of tea, y'all. Just excuse me. She did hear back from them, and she did get approved for that complex. They made the decision to give her an opportunity to be a resident on their property. And so, like, I encouraged her, because I've been in prayer, honey. I had the people that know how to reach God in a certain time to reach out and pray to God concerning this here, because I really didn't want her to be sleeping in her vehicle like she had to resort to doing, because she can't get housing because of her background. And so, but the management said some few things to her about the conversation she was having with the property owner. And I'm going to say that for y'all, because I want y'all to be able to tune in to the next show when I actually have the subject here as a guest that's going to tell us about her journey and her life after the ex in that situation, and give some tips as well as what she learned from that, as well as what we both learned during that time, that will help us encourage and help other people that may be facing these type of challenges with their life after being formerly incarcerated, that experience, that life after the ex, considering they coming home with the big hope of prison reform being such an essential thing in place to help them. But again, the resources are very limited because it's based on a case by case thing, and knowing how to move past that in a very positive and productive capacity, because sometimes people experience things in their life and they're not very good after that. Some people live past situations, they living past it, but they're not really living past it in a very productive and positive way. They're very negative in those ways, and that's why you see the rate of crime happening, not just crime against individual, but crimes against oneself. I mean, if you go out and you kill yourself, that's a crime against yourself, because that was something that was just overwhelming in your life that you just could not handle, that you've already experienced, and you didn't even get a chance to see what that life after that ex looked like, because you violated that in that criminal act by taking your life. And so we want to be here to share things that's going to help combat against those things that may be mental health driven, that may be bad trauma experience driven, that may be because of bad decision making driven, that will allow you to be able to live in a productive, spiritually, physically, and mentally sound place concerning that. And so, again, my prayer is that, when you come on, if you have questions or comments concerning the subject matters that we're discussing, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us via all of our social media platforms, be it email or inbox, or you can just tag us within this video, and we'll be happy to follow up with you with any type of questions or resources that can assist you with those capacities. So if you're challenged with housing, we have resources for that. If you're challenged with trying to find a job or go to school to rebuild your life after your experience of being formerly incarcerated, please reach out to our network. Again, you can reach out via All About Us Media, AAU Media, via all social media platforms, as Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as All About Us Global Media Productions. You can look them up via their website. You can also reach out to me via my email or website or inbox or any social media platforms that are Life After the X. Thank you again for hanging out with us. I am going to take another small break, and I'll be back to share a tip of the week, as well as a few more things concerning my future shows that are coming. I have some amazing guests lined up. I'm going to give their topics, but I won't be talking about them in detail because they'll get a chance to come on here and tell you about their amazing life after whatever that experience is, as well as they're going to share a tea of the week that we're sipping on. We ain't going to tell who it's from. We're just going to tell you what flavor we're sipping on, okay, because we want to be safe about what we're putting out here on our show, as well as a tip that will encourage you during that time. So thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. I am Ty Washington, the Ex-Con expert. We're here every week, every Thursday for the next few months, because typically we're on Tuesday, but we're hanging out on Thursdays for a little while at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also find more about me personally on my website, because I am a published author, I am a designer, I am a educator, and I offer a lot of other services other than coming on hosting the shows and giving great information about topic matters about life after anyone's experience that they've gone through. And so you're more than welcome to send me any type of questions or comments or suggestions on the topic, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you come on and give us some of your experiences that you've lived through, that you want to tell your life after the X on. Give us a great tip of the week and have a cup of tea with us during that time, so as we spill the tea. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're going to take a small break, and we'll be back here shortly.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website, www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.
I tell you, that song just has me over here doing all thing natural. You know, I love candles, and I love stones, and I love fireplaces, and I love waterfalls, and I love all things natural. So I really love every time I see that sponsor come on and hang out with us during that time for our small breaks. So thank you so much for that sponsor for us doing this show. I am Ty Washington, the ex-con expert, and I'm here to level out the playing grounds because it's all about your perspective. And so we're here every week, every Thursday for the next few months, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm here to talk about topics that sometimes push the buttons because we just want to spill the tea on the facts that can really help someone experience a better life after their ex. And so this week we're talking about prison reform and resources and what that looks like when it comes to housing and the challenges that those who are starting their life over have to face in reality. People don't understand that there are a lot of challenging things that happen with people across the board. People are really going through trying times. There's a lot that's really going on in this world. And so, but you got to think a large number of those people that's regenerated back into society have a background. And so, with that being said, we have to, I'm going to just shed a light on some of the things that they face behind the scene that most people don't hear about because most of them don't really talk about their life after. I know a lot of people who personally have been in prison who come home and they start back. They just filter right back into society and they try to let people know as less as possible as they have to. Now, of course, those who may be a sex offender, the community has to know that they're being regenerated back into the society, depending on what area they're moving in. Because some areas they cannot live in at all, okay? Because they definitely can't be around the children's areas. But when it comes to the rest of the population that are those, whether they're violent ex-offenders or just ex-offenders, they try to regenerate back in as naturally within the society as possible. I want to kick the wall down on that. I need them to understand that there is not one who does not have a challenging past that can't be shared to help someone feel welcomed in any community. And whenever we decide to not share for whatever personal reasons that is, it helps others. It hinders others from being able to be helped to regenerate back into society. And so I don't want to be one who is hindering those who can be productive because they were ashamed for whatever reason to not come out and get the real help and resources that are really available for those like myself and others that I'm connected to that will make sure that you have that provision in place to get you where you got to go. Because like with this situation, she was challenged. She's been to school. She's been productive, working, doing the things that she needs to do. But she was very challenged when it comes to the anxiety level that raises up on her when she goes to be denied housing. And that can be a challenge for some people. And so I was very fortunate to be able to mediate on her behalf and speak to the property manager and via the owner to consider looking at things beyond the application. Because again, when I did time, I only did 4 years, but after returning back, I did paper applications back in my day. But when I regenerated back to society, everything was pretty much online. So you don't even really do stuff. You checking boxes and it's very general. So they don't really get a chance to interact with you. They just pretty much like, even when you fill the paper in person, they saw you in person, handed it to you. You could ask and talk and have a dialogue. But when you're doing things online electronically, people don't really get a chance to know you. They just kind of sift you out as though you just a part of the don't fit in group who've been ostracized from a lot of people because of their background, who should be afforded an opportunity to be a productive citizen. Because believe it or not, there are so many talented, gifted, amazing people that come back into the community that people don't even know about. So much that could be happening. There could be so much building up that community or that neighborhood or that city or that county or that state, for as much as it matters, if they would only give those who have had a past an opportunity. But people never make that conversation available. So therefore, I want to make sure that we always keep that foremost on our conversation list as we spill the tea. Because I'm going to have a sip right now. As we share that I'm having an amazing ginger mint lemon tea. Oh my God, let me tell you. It is so good. It's good. It soothes my throat. And honey, I gotta have it to make sure I can talk during all this time on this show. But also I just want to make sure that we keep that far and foremost on the show because it's a very sensitive subject matter for me personally And I do always want to make sure that I'm living in real time. Favor ain't fair. And so I say this a lot because sometimes some of the things that I was afforded being a formerly incarcerated, with having a support system, with family coming home to them, the networks and the ministries that I'm connected to shortly after returning back to home. I don't know what it's like to have been rejected a whole lot, but I do know what it's like to feel unaccepted in a lot of things based on the criteria that people try to use when they run a background per se on not just your credit worthiness, but because of your background. And they base it on sometimes what seems to be a very isolated one-time incident with most people, and people life is shifted and changed drastically where they can't hardly move productively forward because of that one thing in the past. But I'm here to encourage them that you can move beyond those points, and there are people here in place that are going to be here to navigate, mediate, and speak up on your behalf to make sure that those real resources are being accessibly available for you, and that prison reform can get a new look, because right now it has a bad look. And we will again be pushing and pulling toward that during this new election time, with all the politicians who say they want to be here for the community at large and at a whole, but they don't realize that majority of their community probably have a misdemeanor or felony. And so they need to start addressing us as though we are the majority, because we're really probably not the minority in most communities. And so I'm so again thankful for you guys hanging out with me doing this show, where we're able to just address real life situations in real time, and I'm able to come on and share my life after the experience, as well as have guests come on and talk about those real challenging topics that need to be addressed in real time, as well as give us a tip for the week. So with that being said, I'm going to share my tip of the week because we're shutting down in the show, and it's been so amazing hanging out with everybody. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's such a privilege and a blessing. So my tip of the week is that whenever you feel discouraged, whenever you feel discouraged, just push a little bit harder, because it's always brighter on the dark side of the night before. That morning is always going to be way brighter than the night before. It's going to seem dark, challenging, hard, and a little more much than what you've expected. But if you just push a little bit harder, and so I want to encourage you just to push a little bit harder, so you're going to push through to that dark moment, and you're going to get to that bright new side of that great, amazing opportunity that just awaits you on the other side of that new day. And so, along with that tip, I'm going to share this resources that whenever you're challenged with becoming a renter, don't let that fret you. There are so many opportunities to becoming a homeowner, which, especially if you are a business owner like myself, entrepreneur, being a homeowner is more advantageous for you than being a renter anyway, because of the tax breaks that you can utilize with your property being for your business. So if you are being challenged or being rejected enough with complexes that want to just take your money and application fees, when you're buying a home, they just really looking at how much money you got, if you really got a sound job, and if you got some credit worthiness. And believe it or not, in these days, market and time, you can almost get a house with a low credit rate. You might have a high interest rate, and I could talk about that in another show, which we will talk about that, spill the tea on how you can finance a home with a low interest rate. With a high interest rate, because your credit score was low, but you can go back in and refinance once your credit score builds and get a lower interest rate. So we look forward to having that conversation with you. Come on in this cubicle and have this conversation with the SCON expert, because we just want to level the playing grounds, because it's all about your perspective. And here, I want to say this before we get out of here. Never allow anyone to X you out. Never allow anyone to X you out, because guess what? Any X would do. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is Ty Washington, the XCon expert. We are here on Life After the X every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is AAU Media. You can find us on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as if you want to reach out to me personally, you can find me on Life After the X across the board. That'd be my email address, my website address, as well as my social media platforms. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, and you have a wonderfully blessed week.
Everyone has dealt with something that had them down. Bumps and bruises along the way, it's so profound. So you gotta get up, brush yourself off. It's not the end of the world. Straighten up and hold your head high. Walk in faith and believe in yourself, and you will come out living after the end. Life after the end. We all experience it in our lifetime. After the end. Life after the end. Learn from your circumstance and you will survive. You can live.
What did you learn? What did you earn? Life is the bridge. What did you burn? Take a page from the book and elevate yourself. This is how you celebrate yourself. Move on and try to elevate your wealth. A lesson learned for your own purpose. Own purpose. Soul searching is the way you improve. When you got something to lose, you keep the risk low. The best teacher is experience. A quick quote.
Never discount your experiences. There's a lot for you to learn from every fall, twist and turn. And no matter what they say about you, they can feel any way about you. Anyway, it's all for you to live in, all for you to give, all for you to learn from, all for you to jump into life and give it a go. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Life after the end. Life after the end. Life after the experience. Life after the end. Life after the experience. Life after the X. Life after the X. Life after the experience. Life after the end. Life after the X. Life after the experience. Life after experience is the best teacher.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.